Trust is the foundation of progress. Yet in a world of rapid technological change and growing complexity, it often feels like the missing piece. I'm Matt Yarger, and I've spent years working at the intersection of sustainability, technology, and innovation. Through this podcast, I sit down with leaders, visionaries, and changemakers to explore one key question: what builds trust? From global systems to personal decisions, we'll dive into how trust, or the lack of it, shapes our world. Join me as we uncover insights, challenge assumptions, and explore how we can create a future built on trust. Let's get started. Welcome to the Future of Trust, where we explore how trust is built, broken, and rebuilt in the systems shaping our world. I'm your host, Matt Yarger. Today, I am joined by Oscar Hedaya, a product builder and founder working at the intersection of physical security, privacy, and everyday trust. Trust does not break all at once. For some people, it cracks early, quietly, and permanently reshapes how they move through the world. Oscar Hedaya learned that lesson young. He grew up in New Jersey in a community that looked stable from the outside. Inside his home, things changed fast. Money disappeared, certainty disappeared, but what stayed was responsibility. Oscar started working at 12, fixing spreadsheets for adults. At 15, he took a business owner to court because he wasn't paid, and there was no one else to fight that battle for him. That experience did not make him cynical, it made him precise. In our first conversation, Oscar said something that really stuck with me. When you grow up without money, the only thing you really have is your word. Your name becomes your currency. If you lose it, there's nothing left to fall back on. That belief shows up everywhere in how he operates today. Oscar is the founder of The Safe Space, a smart safe designed around a simple idea. People should not have to blindly trust companies, platforms, or institutions to feel secure. Ownership should be clear, access should be earned, and systems should be built to protect users even when the pressure shows up. He refuses to build in backdoor access. He designs for misuse, not best case behavior, and he treats reputation as something you defend over decades, not something you trade for short-term wins. This episode is not about hardware specs or features. It is about what happens when someone who learned trust the hard way decides to encode that worldview into a system that other people rely on. We talk about early environments, personal lines he will not cross, and what it actually takes to build something people can depend on when it matters. So let's dig in. Oscar, thanks for bearing with me through the intro. You probably never looked at yourself in that perspective, but that's really what I took away from our kind of discovery call. So I hope that resonates with you and gives you a good foundation to kind of build on. But before we really get into like the safe space and everything else you've done before safe space, let's start really early on and just help people understand why they should trust you and like what are your foundations in trust. So like when you were 10 years old, what was life like? What was your day to day?
Yeah. And it's funny because your introduction made me realize I'm like, you never, even though like we had our introductory call, I never in a million years, it doesn't resonate as much when somebody says it back to you. And like the truth is, if I was maybe a more sensitive guy, maybe I would have started to cry because the truth is, lived a hard life. You know? What was 10 years old like for me? I grew up and in a family that had money and then we lost money. So, it's hard to explain that to somebody who doesn't come from not having money, but basically you could eat anything you want. You could order anything you want, go to restaurants, and there is no like limit of anything, clothes, you like something, you go shopping and you buy whatever you want. And that when you lose your money, that quickly turns into like, no, you have parents who their entire lives, they're protecting you and, they're making sure you have everything in your life. Parents don't really say no, if they're saying no, it's because like of something silly, but like when you're a kid and you want an ice cream and you're used to having an ice cream and all of a sudden now you can't have an ice cream ever anymore.
Why?
Because,
what happened?
Yeah. Like we just can't afford those extra $5 times 4 kids, which is like $20, that's a lot of extra money if you don't have money. And like, $20 to go into food for a family, to feed people for a dinner, or to pay rent, if you could allocate those $20 towards something else, you're no longer getting what you want as a child. And so growing up where I always had everything I wanted, and then now I don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a rude awakening. And like, if a parent says no once, okay, it's just because of so and so. But if that's happening all the time and you're no longer getting something that you're used to getting, it really, like I'm saying, it's an eye opener, and it makes you realize, like, shoot, like, this sucks. Like, we live in a society that the currency is money. You
Yeah.
know, it's not like it's not so much trust, like, or your word, but it's really, if you have money in the bank, you could do it. If you
Hmm.
don't, you can't. And so for me, growing up without the money, all I had was was me, my word, my value was
Yeah.
not money, right? Like at 10 years old, 11 years old, before I started working, it's more like, hey, this guy says he's going to do something and he's going to do it. So if he's even going to borrow $10 from his best friend, why am I going to get $10 from my friend? Is because I said I'm always showing up, and I'm always, if I'm saying I'm going to do something, I do it. And if I get lent $10, I'm going to pay those $10 back after,
Hmm.
so the currency of somebody who grows up, who doesn't have any money, is their word, is their name,
Yeah. Where do
that
you
is
start
the
from
value that they
when
had.
when you don't have the fuel anymore? So it's
Yeah.
it's really like taking it down to like, I mean, I'm sure there's questions around trust too, with as a child, like looking at your parents and having them provide one level of life for you one day and then a different level, and you having to rationalize that. Like, is it me? Did I do something wrong? And like taking it personally, or is there something I can help with? Like, there's a lot of different ways as individuals we take that shift in circumstance too.
Yeah, and you said, by the way, and you said it perfectly, because as a child, you grow and you learn based on the way your parents treat you, right?
Hmm.
So if you do something wrong, they're going to yell at you, right? So and that conditions you to make sure you never do that again,
Yeah.
right? So now, if all of a sudden, exactly like you're saying, like where you're getting no's all the time, and it makes you wonder, like, did I do something wrong? Is it because last week, I didn't finish my food on the table? Am I now getting punished? You don't understand as a child. And so it
So
really, it affects you for the rest of your life. And
when
yes.
parents don't think about that kind of stuff, they're stressed about, hey, we can't do this because I got to pay this bill or I got to keep the water running, and they don't think like them just saying no is going to have a long-term negative impact on the attitude or the internal perception of their children. And so, just my
Yeah.
personal takeaway, I need to make sure I take the time to talk to my kids and let them know that when I say no to something, it's not necessarily them, or if it is, I let them know.
That's great communication. And so
Yeah.
for me personally, I mean, us in this time, I'm 40 years old. So if you go 40 years ago, it's very different than today. 40 years ago, people were having children much younger,
Hmm.
so if you're taking parents who are 20 years old in their 20s, they're also children. You know, they didn't experience anything, and they're learning along the way. And I think that's one of the good things of today's society, is that most people are getting married in their 30s.
Hmm.
And when in your 30s, you really start to like see and get to know yourself better. And the only benefits of having a child in your 30s versus 20s is you, you hopefully learn more about yourself, and more about, like, hey, my parents screwed up this way with me, but they didn't intentionally screw up that way. It's just
Yeah.
because they were children, they were adult children. And now in your 30s, you're more like an adult, but
I mean, what is it like? I think they say your brain isn't even fully formed until you're like 25. So
yeah,
you're having kids at 19. you don't even know yourself well enough to like really lead somebody else.
Yeah, and also, by the way, on top of that, if you have ADHD
Oh
or
yeah.
ADD, it develops much slower, right? So what could develop for somebody at 25 for one could be 30 for another.
Hmm. Yeah, that was a good perspective. I think I'm gonna have to research that and like understand more on it too. And so like to step into your childhood a little bit. You grew up in New Jersey. You had this kind of dynamic shift with your parents where something changed and your level of your quality of life shifted pretty drastically. But then you responded to that in a way that, a 10 or a 12-year-old doesn't typically respond. So take me through that.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's different personalities, but also when you're growing up, like I was saying before, based on the way your parents treat you, the
Mhm.
way they act with you, what they say to you, the rules they put in your home, um, and their ethics, their morals, it kind of creates who you are for the rest of your life. And for me personally, right, I was always the type of guy who, um, uh, like, I would do things myself because we didn't have the money anymore. My dad was working 12-hour days.
Mhm.
My mother was taking care of 4 kids. But there was no help anymore. We grew up with like one or two housekeepers and now we have zero. And so like my mom is taking all that stuff. And it doesn't sound crazy to maybe the average person, but when you don't have it and now you have it, sorry, when you have money and then later you don't have it, you have to deal with those things. And we grew up with, hey, we had housekeepers and now we don't. So, like it changes. It's not just the children who change, it's you also change also. So
Yeah.
my mother is taking care of these kids, and that's putting a lot of pressure on her, putting a lot of pressure on the household in general, because like as a mother who before she had money and now she doesn't have money, you're maybe used to going to the supermarket and spending $500 a week. Now the guy is cutting it down to $200 a week to feed 6 mouths. You gotta deal with a lot of stuff. And on top of that, the stress level that comes that these parents have at those ages in their 20s, to deal with stuff like that, that's a lot to take on. So
Yeah.
um for me personally, I guess the way I dealt with it was I kind of said like, okay, shit, like I need I need to figure this out. Like if my friends are going to if we're going to the mall and we're going to see a movie and the movie costs $8, I think that's what it used to be at that time. If a movie costs $8 and my dad is not giving me this $8, I don't I don't want to be left out. I want to hang out with my friends. Like, how am I going to be able to get to the movies? You know? And so obviously there was a couple times we went and we opened the back door and like we would all sneak into the movie theater. But as you get a little older, you realize that's wrong. You
Yeah.
know, if you tell your parents that, like they laugh and they say that's great, but don't do that again.
Yeah.
Like again,
'Cause
it
everybody's
depends.
done it once probably, or
Yeah,
they have a friend that's done it at least. So it's like, oh yeah, you see it in TV shows and everything.
yeah,
It's not a big deal, but it is still an early point of like moral direction. I'm like, is this something that
exactly.
I just become normalized to, or is this something that I know is wrong and I have to work to adjust it?
Yeah. And $8, I mean, back then, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, $8 it's not a lot of money for a movie theater who's doing billions of dollars.
Hmm.
Today the movie theaters are struggling, and it's funny that like $8 today means the world to them, but like 30 years ago didn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
Um, but as the smaller guy, you wonder also like, is $8 going to make a big deal to them? And that's where, again, like it's ethics and parenting that people say like it's wrong or
Hmm.
it's right. You should not steal, or it's okay. It's not that big of a deal if they don't feel a difference. But yeah, my parents were they were pretty good parents, really honest people. Um, and so stealing was never an option for us. After that, it was like that was the only thing I ever stole. And it was like, if the movie is going to be on anyways, and the seat is going to be empty anyways. Are you really stealing? So right, like whether you go or not, they're still running that movie. It's not like you're stealing something out of like a CVS,
Yeah.
So, um, but it kind of makes you wonder. And like as an early kid, that's not acceptable. Parents instill that in us, and so I had to work. I had
Yeah.
to work. I had to
Responsibility
figure
shifted to because
the
like you had it
responsibility shifted.
easy, and then you're like, oh, I have to fill a role here now. Like
Yeah.
I have to fill the gap.
And my dad, actually, my parents also had, they had, they offered us like child labor, obviously is the best, but like it teaches you some like good concepts where like they gave us chores. Like if you do your chores, if you want to earn $1 this week, if you take out the garbage and throw it in the garbage can, I think it was like $2 per week if you did it every day, you
Mm.
know, where it instills in like between growing up poor and then also like, hey, how hard is it to make $2? And then on top of it, I have to do this like 4 times to go to the movies once,
Yeah.
like it really helps you understand. It's a good foundation for children. Like I'm
Yeah.
going to do it to my kids. And like, these little kids are going to be tortured.
I'm really
Uh,
smiling right now because I actually did that exact same thing to my son. So like my son's 10 years old. But I think like a year or two ago now, he was like, Dad, I want some money. I want to go be able to buy things. I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And he's like, well, how can I make money? And so we talked about it. He's like, can I make money from taking the trash out? I'm like, I'm not going to pay you to take the trash out because that's your responsibility now as a contributing member of this household. But maybe you go talk to the neighbors and you say, hey, $1 in, $1 out. I'll take it out every week. And so he did that. And he's got
wow.
5 or 6 homes on the street that
Wow.
every Tuesday he gets home from school, he sets his backpack down, he walks outside, he takes everybody's trash out. Every Wednesday he gets back from school, he sets his backpack down, he brings all the trash back in. And he gets like $10 a week for it, which he's 10 years old. $10 is a lot for him.
That's incredible. Not to mention, so I mean, also like as the other homeowners,
Yeah.
number one, you're saying like, am I going to say no to this little kid who's trying to make like a couple extra dollars? Like you would never take that away from them. But also for them, it's like, yeah, I don't have to take the trash out. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Do
a
it.
dollar.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is amazing. I'm very impressed that you've done that for your kid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I actually did it consciously. He just had like I think some kids have that imperative where they're like, I'm gonna find a way. I want to make money. I'm not gonna rely on someone else to just give me something for free. So I'm gonna figure out a problem and I'm gonna solve it. And so I just kind of guided him in the direction. But it was all him where he was like, I want to do something. What can I do? And I'm like, well, you're only 9, so you can't do a lot. Let's find something for you.
I love.
So what did you do?
Yeah.
I know I'd mentioned it in the
I
intro.
took a total tangent.
Yeah. What did
So
you
what did
do
I
when
do?
you were like, what, 10 to 12?
Yeah. So, my dad was working for this company and, they used to sell phone accessories, but this was like early on, so like they had like, phone cases and what's it called? Headphones and all kinds of any accessory that you could think of for your cell phone. They were selling it. And they were actually huge. They were, I think, like at the time, like Walmart's number one vendor for cell
Wow.
phone accessories. Yeah.
Okay.
So they were doing like phenomenal things. Um, my dad used to work for them, and and so I was trying to find a job. I told my dad, like, obviously this is similar to your kid. Like, hey, how do I make money? And like my dad said, you need to go work. And um, I was pretty good with computers, and my dad actually got this job for me. So I thank him a million times for this job. But I used to be really good with computers, very quick. In my school, I was the fastest guy to do typing per minute.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my like skill set was. And he came home and he said, "Hey, I spoke to my boss, and they have this company that they use, that they outsource people to do this thing for Excel." I think it was outsourcing. Either they had it outsourced or they had a guy in there who was like doing spreadsheet stuff for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't love how long it was taking to do this one particular spreadsheet. And he said, "Hey, could I bring in my son and try him out? You'll pay him like an eighth of the price, and and if anything, you get cheap labor, and it'll probably be around the same time. And if not, maybe he'll figure something out and do something quicker, you know?" And so they called me in and they told me, "Okay, we're expecting this thing to take you a couple days to do. Um, Here's the spreadsheet. This is what we need to do. We need to separate this from this and do all these things." And I said, "Okay." And a couple hours later, I walked into this guy's office that hired me. It wasn't my dad. My dad was just like the recommendation.
Yeah.
And I came into this guy's office and I'm like, "Okay, I'm done with the first spreadsheet. What's the next one?" And he's like, "What do you mean next one? That was it. Show me what you did. Show me what you did." Like, he didn't believe that I
Yeah.
finished what I had to do. And they were so blown away. And again, I was making probably like a fourth, a sixth, an eighth of whatever they were paying the other guy to do, maybe a couple dollars an hour. And the boss, the owner of this company, said, "You know what? Let's hire him full time. He's obviously somebody who like knows what he's doing. We could use him as like a gopher. Anything we need in the office that like nobody else wants to do. It's just cheap labor that like this guy could slate for us and do this work." And so they
You're the
had
local Oompa
tons.
Loompa.
Yeah, the Oompa Loompa. They had tons of work that they started like loading up on me. Like, "Hey, we had returns, we had this, we had that," like stuff that was just like sitting. I even did warehouse work. So this simple job that like was not so simple for somebody else, that became like super easy for me to do. The beauty of it, it started with spreadsheets, but it kind of ended up going into
Mm.
other things. So like I was in the warehouse. They had me like separating boxes. They taught me from like the ground up. I had this little, at that time I was 12 years old when I was doing the warehouse stuff, but um I was carrying boxes, I was emptying them out, I was understanding the way the warehouse works.
Yeah.
And I even came up with like a little system for them for their warehouse that would like um help them with stock and know where they kept certain things that was a little better than what they currently. So yeah, I mean, early on as a young kid, I understood now like what money meant. And like I brought in a couple $1,000 this like when I was like 12 years old. And yeah, and I was like, I don't need to take out the trash anymore. This
That's
is,
awesome.
I made so much money. Like, this lasted me for 1 or 2 or 3 years, the amount of money that I had made.
Yeah.
And like, and now I could go to lunch or dinner with my friends, they grew up in families that had wealth, that were wealthy still. Mine wasn't. But like, now I could do the things that other kids couldn't because I made all this money, you
That's
know?
awesome.
Yeah.
And your
And
parents didn't like have any hand on your money. They were like, "No, that's yours." That's
so
beautiful.
much so that like they didn't ever give me money. So like, like
No
now
more
I
allowance
had,
for you.
yeah. So, but like the beauty of it also, again, like we're saying that you instill these things in a child at a young age. I'm seeing a lot of money come in, and then I'm seeing slowly it getting depleted
Mm-hmm.
over the year because, hey, I want to do some stuff during the week. My parents weren't giving me money for. So you really learn the value of money.
Yeah. Is this just a
So
summer job, or did you do it through the school year too?
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it through the school year. The reason was my school was, they picked us up at 7 a.m. and they dropped us home at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah.
So and then at night you'd be doing homework. So there was no during the school year. But yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna to move into one of our common questions we have. So can you share a moment when your trust was either broken or built in a person or a system or company or something?
Yeah. So like I was saying, I didn't have money growing.
Yeah.
So my currency was trust. But everyone in my life at the time, I could trust them, right? Like who was around? It's your best friend. It's your parents, it's your siblings, it's your grandparents. So like at a young age, coming from a good home with a good foundation,
Hmm.
right? Trust is taken almost for granted, right? Because you have everybody's trusted.
Yeah, it's not
Now,
a question.
yeah, there's no question. And so the first time that I really ever experienced somebody that I couldn't trust was I worked for somebody when I was 15 years old in a cell phone store. I remember my mom had to pick me up and drop me home. And like, that was and we all know what that was like at that age. But so I worked, let's say, 20 minutes away, and my mom would take me, drop me off, pick me up in the afternoon or the evening. I don't remember the schedule, but I worked for this guy who used to sell cell phone accessories and cell phones and sign people up through like a cell phone service like T-Mobile, Verizon. He in his store, he would sign you up for whatever plan. Back then, the plans were a little different than they are now. Now
Yeah.
everything's just unlimited. But back then you had to pay like, okay, how many text messages are you going to send? How many minutes do you need? So depending on what your requirement was, we'd throw you into like a certain cell phone provider. And if we would sign you up through that cell phone provider, we would make a commission as the company. And then the representatives like me would make a commission based on that. So we would be paid hourly, a very, very low minimum wage hourly. And then on top of that, whatever commissions you'd have based on how many people you'd sign for cell phones. Um, so I'm super young at this stage, and sometime like 2000 or something, right? 2000, 2001,
Okay.
2002, 2000, I guess. And it's a little different than today because today everybody has cell phones. Back then you didn't. So you would be walking around and you would try to sell people on a cell phone. People wouldn't be coming to you just, hey, oh, I saw your store. I need a cell phone. It was more
Yeah.
like, hey, you need to make this extra sale. And so I worked for this guy for the summer. It was about 2 months, and he was always late to pay, and he always had like a different excuse. And so I worked there 2 months, and the second month he just was not paying me.
Yeah.
And instead of being late to pay, and then he would pay me the full amount that he owed me, now it was going down to like, hey, um, I'm going to pay you a quarter of what I owe you now. We need a little time. We need to get the
Mhm.
commissions from the cell phone services. And then whatever. I knew this guy because he was in my community also.
Yeah.
So a
Okay,
community
fine.
guy,
It'll I'll like
it,
give us some
yeah,
time.
gonna get screwed by a community guy, but I did. And so this guy, this after the summer ended, he didn't want to pay me. And I was like, shit, this guy owes me a couple $1,000s. Like, I know based on working throughout the year, number one, I need that money to survive for the next 10 months.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, I, I worked for it. So by logical definition, if you work for something, you're supposed to get paid for it, right?
Yeah, and as
That's
we
the way
said
it works.
earlier, like if you say you're gonna do something, you should do it.
Yeah. And so now I'm like, this guy told me outright when I asked him for my money, he said, you're not getting paid. I'm not paying. And then he started making different excuses. Like, the reason I'm not paying you is where before it turned into like, I need extra time because of the cell phone providers. Now it turned into different excuses. Like,
Mhm.
we had two people in the store. You were one, there was another. And I don't pay for two people. I only pay for one. And it's like, well, put me in that store.
Yeah.
Like you told me to go there when he was there. Like what do you know? And so yeah. And so I decided I mean, I didn't have anybody who could help me out. My nobody in my life circle at that point had any experiences like that. And they're all honest people. And I was like, shit, what do I do?
Yeah.
And I don't know where I came up with this idea from, but I said, I'm going to sue this guy. This guy owes
You're
me
like, what,
money.
15?
Yeah, I'm 15 years old. I I need this money. This guy, I'm suing this guy. How do I go about this?
Yeah.
And I think I think I asked my dad, like, what do I do? And I don't I don't remember. I mean, it's almost 30 years ago at this point, so I don't really remember how I moved forward. But everything that I did at that point was all like Oscar trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, my dad was like working 12-hour job,
Yeah.
12-hour
You knew you
days.
had to shoulder the responsibility. You
I
didn't.
shouldered the responsibility, and I figured like, okay, I need to, I need to take this guy to court. And I understood that there was something called small claims. That was me. This guy didn't owe me a lot of money. Small claims didn't require a lawyer, so I didn't have to
Okay.
pay out any money. I think I paid like $100 or something. I don't know what it costs, maybe
Yeah. Like a filing
$50,
fee or something.
the filing fees. And that's when I realized the first time that like, there are tons of dishonest people out there. If somebody I knew that came from my community is willing to screw me over, that means now, that's one out of like 7 billion people. Like there has to be many more of these people.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's when I started to really realize like you really can't trust anyone. you know?
But as long as you trust yourself to figure it out, and I think that's the one thing that really sticks with me through your story is like you learn that, okay, when it comes down to it, I've got to be my backup.
Yeah.
I've got to be the one that is going to figure this stuff out, and then you prove to yourself year over year, summer over summer, essentially, that like you could get the job done. And if you had a problem, you could do your own research and you could figure out how to solve it. And
Yeah. And it really, you hit it right on the nail, but it's really been my life since I'm 10 years old.
yeah,
And, it goes back to like, okay, making money and all this, like first job. If I want to make money or take out the trash, whatever my chores were, it made you realize like, even your parents who are there to protect you, you know, they don't always have your back. And
yeah.
it's not that they intentionally don't have your back. They're not trying to harm you. It's just that, maybe my dad didn't have the time or understand it or like could put energy into that.
Still have the
Like
resources to support you.
exactly. And I thank them every day because it's who I am today. If it
Mhm.
wasn't for that, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
gave you a
it,
sense of confidence that like, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, but I question myself every fucking day. And I'm sure there's plenty of other founders out there that do where like I'm still going through my cycles. I'm still failing fast and like blah 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 and figuring out like what can I trust myself for and what do I need help for?
yeah. I mean, look, that's also life though, right?
Yeah.
You're always I hope until the day you die, you're going to be learning life lessons and learning new things because that means also like you're not just sitting home watching TV, that your brain is constantly being developed,
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
But I mean that's not common with everyone. Like I've talked to quite a few people on this and like understanding where your trust comes from, like your trust, like you have a system there, but they're not always going to be available. And so
yeah,
you learn to trust yourself through the work and the cycles. Others, they did have a system there, or they had something that was like, oh, I can just ask for help. And so their default on how they make decisions or how they handle difficulty is they ask for help. But
yeah,
learn like people don't always have the ability to help you. So sometimes you just got to figure the shit out.
it's true. It's true. I mean, it's true. The way I always saw, and I think maybe this will shed a little more light, but I always felt like I know that I can't lean on my family and my parents for money. I always
Hmm.
felt, right? Because they didn't have money growing up. So I knew I always had to make
Mm,
money. But I always knew that if I needed a place to go, if I needed,
Someone to talk to.
to someone to talk to, I don't know if I spoke to my parents,
Okay. We're getting somewhere on
but
this.
if I needed somewhere, I always felt that, and this is as an entrepreneur, this is why I guess I'm an entrepreneur also. I knew that at the end of the day, when I was a young kid, my parents wouldn't give me money because they didn't have money. But if I needed, I always had a room to stay, to sleep in, right? I always had a roof under my head.
Yeah.
I always had like, like at the end of the day, if I didn't go out to eat with my friends, I always had food at home.
Yeah. You
And
still have
so,
some level of safety.
yes. And so the safety net for me always has always been that. It's always been like, hey, if as an entrepreneur I failed, I knew that I would always have a bed to sleep in. And I knew that if I needed to eat something, whether it's a steak or rice and beans, like the most expensive or the most cheap meal, I
Yeah.
knew like I would always have that safety net. And I
Yeah.
know not everybody does. But like luckily I had that, and I always knew I had that. So
Yeah.
for me to be, I mean, this is the third company as an entrepreneur that I've been involved in as a startup. So for me, I always had that safety net. Um, yeah. There's also something else I actually would love to say is as I've been doing this my whole life, and again, it's probably the way I was brought up was, I'm the type of guy who says I'm putting all or nothing into this,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, um, there's no like, should I do like 80% and
Yeah.
save
Let's just like
20% and
test it
like,
a little bit and like see how it works out. No, you're not
yeah,
that guy.
I don't mind testing, but like in a small way,
Yeah.
but like, it depends. Like for me to test this company space and the space to test it would cost $1 million, right? So I'm not testing that. Like there is no way to test that,
Yeah.
there's maybe tests in a smaller way, but in general, um, I'm all or nothing kind of guy where even when I played, I don't know if you ever play like board games growing up.
Yeah.
So you ever play Monopoly?
Of course.
Do people still play that?
Yeah. My son loves Monopoly. I fucking hate it, but
Right.
my wife loves it too.
So I would win almost. I'm going to tell you my strategy. It's for a lot of board games. I do this. When I play, I would hedge everything
Mm.
on like one group of properties, and I would risk everything just for for one thing. So it would be
Yeah.
like I would put all my money into one thing, and I know that like as an investment, that's the worst thing you could ever do. But in terms of like energy, it's great,
Yeah.
Um, and so I've always been that guy who says like, I'm willing to risk it all to see what happens. And again, I think that's what makes me a good entrepreneur
Absolutely.
is like, I'm willing to risk everything. If I have like $1 million in my bank account, I'm willing to risk all of that and more just to see, make sure it's like the best product and the best thing. And that like it really goes to the end, you
Yeah.
know,
You
because
put
at the end of the
everything you've
day,
got into it.
yeah, at the end of the day, I always know I have my safety net. So,
Yeah.
um, for whatever that's worth. So yes.
So I got one last question. And I was actually told to ask you this by somebody else.
Oh,
But
right.
can you tell me about Mark Hedaya?
so, Mark Hedaya. Mark is my middle name,
Ah.
and I grew up with uh, the name Mark. My name's Oscar.
Mhm.
My name's Oscar Mark Hedaya on my birth certificate. I grew up in the 80s. So back then, I don't know if you remember, but we had Sesame Street. So yeah, we had Oscar the Grouch. He was the guy who came in the garbage, right? He
Yeah.
came out of the garbage, this green guy that was dirty and like,
Oh no.
um, so my dad I was named after my grandfather, whose name is Oscar. He was Latin, so it's an acceptable name. But Oscar here in the U.S. was not a common name, and it's you wouldn't be thinking of the boxer. You'd be thinking of what's it called? As a kid,
The
you
trash
see
can
Sesame
monster.
Street. Yeah. So my dad said he didn't want to name me Oscar, and he wanted to give me a middle name, and they gave me Mark. And so I went by Mark until I was 17 because that was the name that they gave me. And they gave it to me because they didn't want me to get picked on in school and bullied. And so I went by the name Mark until I was 17, and I went to get a license. And I was like, what am I doing, Mark? Like,
Yeah.
Mark doesn't speak to me, you know? So Oscar was my name, and I went with Oscar. And I just, from then on, at the age of 17, I completely changed my what you see on
Your
the
your
outside.
personal brand.
It's my personal brand.
You're like, I'm not going to be afraid of some other association, like someone being named Donald right now. I'm going to own it.
Yeah. And I remember it was hard to like switch in the beginning because like there were people who wouldn't want to call me Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, in general, like when you're being called, like I understand when people go on witness protection, what they're going through. Let's just say that,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
starting
I
fresh.
was told by a mutual friend of ours. He's like, "Oh, you know what you should ask him? You should ask him about Mark." Because he said one day you just came up and you're like, I'm not Mark anymore. I'm Oscar, and from now on I'm Oscar. And everyone was like, "Who the fuck is Oscar?"
Yeah, exactly. Who is Oscar? like, like you don't get to just change your name. Why
Yeah.
did you change your names? But yeah,
All right. So kind of moving into the rest of your life.
yeah,
When we talked about your company, you said something that was very different. You're like, my company is me. And I resonated with that really personally. And so in your own words, what's the problem that you're now trying to solve for people when they put one of your safes in their home?
yeah. So we're the. I don't think we said anything about the product. But we are this. Me and my team, we developed the first product, the first safe rather, to have a touch screen, cameras, tamper sensors, 40 other features, and it connects to your cell phone.
Yeah.
So the idea behind it is you can think of like Ring doorbell, but for safes. And we were, for me, actually, I came up with this idea, but I was looking for something, a business to go into. I actually had probably should have said this before, but I had actually just got screwed from a partner of mine who owed me money, and he owed me, he screwed me. And so
Yeah.
now I was like, it was a guy I trusted impeccably. And so now I'm like, all right, I want to look for a new business to start. And there was a need in my family that made me need to search for safes and look for safes.
Yeah.
And say, hey, we need a safe in our homes. And I looked online. I probably spent like 3 or 4 weeks looking at different products out there, and everything really seemed a little outdated.
Yeah.
And every safe was just like a metal box with a fingerprint reader or a digital keypad or just yeah, or a key.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of came up with the idea, like, we live in this time. It was 2020 at the time, or 2019. I forget what year it was, but I said, I have light bulbs that I could turn on through my cell phone. We have a Ring doorbell that I could like see who's in front of my house. Like, why is this safe so outdated? And so came up with this concept, this product. And really what sets us apart from any other safe is safes today 99% of safes sold today are traditional safes.
Yeah.
Right? These are the safes that you see every day in movies, in hotels, anywhere you go. That's the safe that you're seeing. And the funny thing about it is, you're buying a safe thinking that it's secure. And a lot of safes are very secure, and there's a lot of safes that are not secure at all. But
Hmm.
the problem with it is, you buy a piece of metal and it's forgotten about. You put your stuff in there, you forget all about it.
Yeah.
And the only time you remember about it is if you're either going to get something
You're
or
putting something away.
if you're putting something away. Exactly. And so the way we separate ourselves from every other safe company is, on top of like this awesome tech that we have that, like, I don't know, I'm not even going into it now, but um, the way we really differentiate ourselves is, it's not just like a get it and forget it. You
Hmm.
buy our safe, and if anything happens, you're notified,
Yeah.
so that's like what real security is about, right?
Yeah.
It's
When you
not
go to a
just like,
bank, like they have logs, they track these things. Who accesses it? When do they access? There's cameras in place. So you're like, how do you take that kind of like higher level of security and bring it down to you and I?
exactly, exactly. And so that's how we kind of differentiate ourselves. And like, I this happened to me about a month ago. My housekeeper, I have a housekeeper who comes once a week to my house, or if if I'm clean that week, I tell her to come later. Um, she's somebody I trust impeccably. She's great, but she came one day when I wasn't expecting her,
Mm.
and maybe we had a miscommunication. I don't know, or maybe she just had a free day. But she came. I wasn't expecting her. I live in an apartment building, so she has free access to my apartment. They don't have to call me to say like, "Hey, could we let up Maria?" So Maria just comes up to the front. I mean, comes up to my apartment, and I received a notification from my phone that said, "Check the safe. Uh, there's there's been some tamper activity." And I'm like, tamper activity. This is exactly why I need
Yeah.
my safe. So I open it, I look, I have cameras like I was saying before. So we have cameras on the outside and the inside.
Oh,
And I
wow.
looked at the camera and I see that she's just like cleaning the safe, you know? So, and
But
she
it's
doesn't know
that
it's safe.
sensitive to where like she's just kind of dusting it and wiping it down. You had no idea she was there, and the safe
Yeah,
is the thing that set it apart and was like, "Hey, there's someone in your house right now, and they're in and around your safe."
yeah, exactly. And so the difference is, I have cameras in my apartment, but I get notifications all day long with those things.
Yeah.
The sun comes in, the sun goes out, you have a mosquito that flies by. It's horrible. Like, so I just ignore those things. And I hope nobody who's going to burglarize me listens to that. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the difference with having something specific to like a safe is, I'm connected. I know if anything is happening to my safe. And that's really what sets us apart from regular safes, is you're kind of trusting blindly,
Hmm.
where, again, you don't know if something happened until you need to know,
Yeah.
where as our safe, instantly.
Yeah, and that's an interesting perspective to kind of sit on for a second too, because like I have a safe. It's not very smart. It's got the keypad and everything, a whole bunch of stuff. But I don't know if my kids ever try to get into it. I like as long as I check it and everything's there, that's all I ever really think about. But you could have parties and you could have cleaning people that come over and you could have others that kind of come in and out of your house. And it would be good to know if they ever tried, because that is kind of a root of trust where like you're trusting them by default to some degree if you're not there and they're accessing it, or if like you're downstairs and you're like, yeah, go use my restroom, and your safe is on the way up there or something. But then you've got this other point that's like, I thought they were a friend and now they're over here messing around with my safe, or I thought I could trust this housekeeper, I thought I could trust this plumber or whatever. And now I know like maybe I shouldn't use them in the future. So like there's that fail safe for just like level setting your foundation of trust with people that are in your space that you wouldn't really have otherwise.
Yeah, totally. And it actually made me think of something else. The other thing that sets us aside from other safes is, we don't look like a regular safe.
Mm,
Regular safes are just like this piece of metal box,
yeah.
square. It's almost always a square. It's disgusting. But our safes, we have a glass. I mean, it's like you think of like an iPad on top of a safe, and there's
Hmm.
like it's curved angles, and there was a lot of love that went into it by me and the designers who intentionally made it not look like a safe.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I
yeah,
think that comes back to the question too of like you said, my company is me. And so you really kind of set out to build something and put your all into it. So there's a lot of consistency in what you're saying here, man. But you want to do things a little differently. And that's part
yeah,
of who you are. You don't want to do the same thing that everyone else did. You want to find ways to make things better. You want to find ways to improve the warehousing system or other things. And you want to make it your own.
yeah. Because you said it exactly right. I mean, my entire life, how did I have like I had to stand out,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a competitive person, but and I don't like being competitive because I don't like hurting other people's feelings, or I don't like to like try to find some way to like like competition with when you're young.
Hmm.
I, I don't love it. Like you're usually putting somebody else down, and so like instead of doing that, I always said like, how's the best way I could stand out that
Yeah.
doesn't look like I'm even competing against anybody. Like these other safe companies, they don't they're not even close to what we do here. We're so many light years ahead, and like we're so different that we're not saying like we're not shitting on this other brand. It's just we're just completely different, you know?
Yeah. Are you familiar with Gary V? Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah, Gary Vee is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He said this thing. I don't know how long ago he said this, but it's probably maybe 10 years ago by now. But he said this thing that's like really stuck with me. It's like when you're building a business, there's two ways you can do it. You can look at all the other businesses that are like yours and try to tear them down, or you can just build a better business. And like it's really coming into motion right because I've taken that to heart and it feels like you're very much the same kind of guy to where like, yeah, you can sit here and talk down about some potential competitors, or you could just build a better product and just keep saying, okay, you make the decision. I don't need to talk down about them. Look at their product and look at mine and tell me which one's better.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I went to a trade show a year ago now. It was
Mm-hmm.
last January or last February. I can't remember. Last January, I went to a trade show, and it was safety, security, stuff like that. So there were a lot of um, safe manufacturers, and we're in the stage right now that we're trying to scale our business. So we're like looking also for like outside investment. And one of the things that like somebody in the team said, like, why don't we go and see if another safe company wants to like merge with us, and acquire us, because we have this company, we have this product, it's built out already, it's patented, so like it's
You've done the
almost like
work.
it's almost like when Dyson went to Hoover and said like, hey, do you want to buy this vacuum? And now they have the option of like being the biggest, or
Hmm.
like staying the biggest, or like losing the opportunity. And so I remember I spoke with a couple of safe guys there, and they're like, no, no, we don't want to come down to see your booth. We don't want to know, It's like, okay, whatever. And I ended up seeing this one company. I'm not going to say the company name because of this. I saw this one company, uh, very big company, competitor of mine. Uh, they they were they had a meeting at one of these digital keypads for their safes,
Hmm.
and I was like, I know that company. They have like horrible digital keypads, like digital keypads, like I've read so much stuff about it online that like you could just break into this thing so easily. Like, and they're selling their safes for like thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm not going to say the name of the company because, like, again, I don't want to shit on a competitor of mine, but I was shocked. And when he finished his meeting, I waited for him for like 20 minutes. Um, and when he was leaving, I walked up to this guy. He's the CEO, COO, not the CEO, COO, but he makes like most of the decisions for that kind of stuff. But I told him, I said, hey, I have a company. It's a small company. It's a startup still. You know, we're selling thousands of these safes, and I would love to show you my safe.
Hmm.
And so he came to my booth, and I didn't tell him about the product. I just
Yeah.
like, I said, we're a little different. It's just 2 rows down. Come
Yeah.
take a look. And if you're
Five
not
minutes.
blown away, just leave,
Yeah.
you know? And he comes in, he goes, this is a safe? I go, yeah. He goes, doesn't look like a safe. It's like, yeah, yeah, this is a safe. Come check it out. Come take a look at it. So one of our features is a screensaver because we have a
Okay.
touch screen. So he's like, but this is a printer. I was like, yes, it is, but touch the screen. And so I remember him taking a look at this thing, and he goes, this guy was blown out of the water. And he's like, this is really cutting edge stuff. This is
Yeah.
really, really cool. This is very different. Nothing ended up happening with him, but um,
It was a point of
it's
validation for you, though.
right. That was a point of validation where one of the biggest players
They
in
saw,
this
and you
thing.
saw a spark. I'm sure, like you saw it, and
Yes.
he was like, "Oh, maybe we should
Yeah.
change our perspective on what things look like a little bit."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exciting for any founder. Like whether they try to compete with you and build a similar product or not. What it sounds like you've got your moat, you've got your patents and everything, so
Yeah.
you shouldn't have too much risk. But
We kind of ended where he said like, hey, get a couple other sizes. And
mhm,
when you become bigger, reach out to us again. Type
yeah,
of thing. So, but yeah,
but you've got a pathway.
felt
And
great.
every investor loves to know that there's an exit.
Yeah.
So when it comes
Yeah.
down to like how do you build trust with investors, this is a very great story for them to say, we talked to this company, blah, blah, blah. They already signified that there's interest and that there's excitement. We just need to continue. So your use of funds, et cetera. Like there's a good story there that I think kind of helps you go from where you are to where you want to be in a pretty short amount of
Exactly.
time.
Exactly. Yeah. You totally get it.
Yeah. I mean, I love kind of discovering these little like trust points where you had the trust in yourself. You, at some point, everyone's got to get external validation, either by a customer or a competitor or an investor or a partner or whatever. And then you found it. You like went out and said, a lot of people would probably be like, I don't want to talk to the CEO of this big company. Like that's intimidating. You obviously weren't that.
Hey, it's intimidating. It is. I mean, even for a guy like me, I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars to product to different retailers around the
Hmm.
world. So like, I've gone up to, I'm straight. So I've gone up to like hundreds of girls in my life, but still each time that
There's
you
always a
go up to
chance.
somebody, that people like to say it gets easier. I don't know if it gets easier. It just maybe rejection feels nice. Like you're more used to it,
I think
or
the
like,
expectation shifts.
yeah, the expectation shifts. But like, even if I'm going to talk to a buyer of Walmart or Target or Costco, or if I'm going to go up to the hottest girl in the club, or if I'm going to, go to CEO of like this company that can change my life much quicker than I'm doing it myself,
Hmm.
I still get that. I'm a confident guy, but I still get very nervous.
Yeah, those kind of like butterflies, but it's also like, is it anxiety or is it excitement? Because they feel like the
That's
same thing.
that's a good question. You know what? I think they're different. I do think
Yeah.
they're different. I think they're different because excited is like, this is going to be like incredible.
Hmm.
And anxiety is more like, I don't know if I could do this. Like one kind of like pushes you forward. The other kind of like it holds you back a little.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think it's the same feeling, but with a different expectation on the outcome.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Cause like
That's true. Yeah,
anxiety is
that's,
like,
that's a
oh,
good
this
way.
is hard. I'm afraid because you expect that it's going to end badly. Excitement is this is hard. I'm afraid, but it could end well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might be an oversimplification. But so one of the things, and like for I know you and I talked about this for listeners that might not know, like I'm very security conscious. Like I did cybersecurity for a decade. I built secure systems by design. And so I was very like, "Oh, okay, this sounds kind of cool when you were talking about it, but One of the things that really kind of got me to start trusting you and what you're building is when we started talking about how you think about the software and the access to it. So can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny because like every time people, you have, I would probably say about 50% of people say, wow, that's so cool. I need this product when I tell
Hmm.
them about my product. And then you have another 50% who say like, wait, but this connects to the cloud and this goes on the internet. And I don't know if I could trust, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so that's where you kind of have people who are a little more like you're saying for yourself, like, how am I going to trust this product that is connected? Like, if it's holding all of your sacred valuables, it could
Yeah.
be holding a gun, it could be holding $20,000 in cash, it could be holding gold. Everybody has something else that they're hiding in their safe, right? And so, um, I've been in product development for 15 years, and I should have been an engineer. Um, yeah, growing up, right? We were talking about like my growing up as a young kid. If I didn't have something, I had to build it,
Yeah.
right? So uh, it goes down to like the most simple thing, like um, if I didn't have a hamper, I didn't have money to buy a hamper. I created a hamper, right? I bought pieces of wood, I put them together, I made a little hamper. And that was like the most simple thing. And I'm really good with my hands, but that's the most simple thing. And it goes up to like if I needed a computer, right? I couldn't afford a Dell. And back then it was a little different. Like if you wanted to buy a Dell, it was $2,000,
Yeah.
$3,000. Today you could buy a computer for $400. But back then, if you wanted to buy a computer that was cheap, you had to buy the components, figure out what you wanted, spec it out, and then put it
Build it
all together,
yourself. Yep.
build it yourself. And so that's kind of always been my background. And because of it, I've always looked at product and not just like, hey, I need um I need a what's it called? A place to put my laundry, a bin, but I don't want just the box. I
Yeah.
want to make it awesome. I want a good user experience for myself.
You want it to
Right?
spark joy.
Yeah. And like even with my with my computer, like I didn't just want a fan. I wanted a fan that I could control the how much fan power I'm putting. So like I don't mind it being a little loud if I wanted the processor to be cooled down for a certain
Yeah.
amount of time, right? It all comes down to like the user experience. And so when we were building out the safe, I had thought about that in my mind while we're building it out is like, hey, a lot of problems with IoT products, because this is an IoT device, right? A lot of problems with IoT devices are you have people who are creating the product are just engineers or developers, and they don't actually think in like terms of a typical user, right?
Yeah.
They think of like, hey, let's make this cool thing. We made it. It's done, right? They're not thinking like, but that's not the easiest way to open the safe. That's
Yeah.
not the easiest way to do XYZ, right? And that's where like, um, for me, because I had the child to kind of like instill that in me, I'm always thinking like, what's the best way? What's the safest way? I didn't trust people growing up. So how can I make sure that this product that's like instilling trust has the most amount of trust? Right?
Yeah.
So firstly, I know I kind of went on a tangent there, but so our safe, right? On the cloud, we have, so we have cameras stream, it goes through the cloud
Hmm.
and then it goes to somebody's cell phone. And there's no access from us to be able to access the cloud footage,
Yeah.
right? So, uh, if somebody, if somebody, God forbid, has a theft and they don't pay for cloud storage through us, right? So the way we have a subscription level, similar to how like Ring and Nest and all those guys do it. Live streaming is for free, but
Hmm.
if you want to store the footage, it sits on the cloud.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to have that footage stored, that's stored on the cloud, that stuff is, uh, it's backed, sorry, not backed up. It sits on the cloud and it's all encrypted, but we don't have access to that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if
So it's
somebody
all
comes
end to
in,
end encrypted. It's encrypted from the safe to the cloud to the phone.
exactly, it's encrypted on the safe. It's broken down into chunks, and then it's uploaded in portions. That's the way I understand that it works. Uh, we don't have access to the safe because you need physical access. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
physical access, and we don't have access to the cloud because we just don't have access. We
Yeah.
just don't have that because
Yeah. So there's nothing built in for like you to unlock anybody's or for them to even unlock it from like a cloud platform or anything like
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like somebody asked me, like, what happens if I forget my PIN? And because of that, we developed a feature called Forgot PIN, where, yeah, where you could answer like a bunch of different questions similar to a website. I think we have about 40 different questions, 35 questions that you could answer. And some of them are kind of fun. Like the team put like, who's the first person you ever hooked up with? We're like, maybe only you'll know that answer.
that. Yeah.
Um, and so if you forget your PIN, you could recover your access. But if you forget the answers to your question, there's nothing we could do about it. Like
Yeah. You got
you're
to
gonna
do
have
like
to
a
go
hard
to
reset of the safe or something or
doesn't exist for us. Doesn't exist. So like if you forget the PIN and you forget and you lose your keys and you lose all your stuff and we can't help you with the keys, then you're gonna have to really break into the safe and
yeah.
buy a new one after that. Which
This is why it's important to have a password manager. It's like get a password manager, save your stuff so that you just don't ever forget it.
yeah, and by the way, the thing with password managers, I use them, but I don't even know how much I trust them. Like
Some are
because
better than others.
to have one place that has access to all of, like in general, yeah, I think it's much better than like writing something down on a notepad and putting it in your front drawer.
Especially when the physical security aspect is the one that's the most concerning in this situation.
Exactly. 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 Yeah. So
Yeah.
we take security like very, very seriously here.
Yeah.
We also have like 2FA. We're the only safe that has like 2FA, multiple fingerprints, not just like one or two.
Hmm.
But
So you couldn't even say like, hey, you've got your physical lock, but you also have one or two digital locks. And like that
yes,
might not be something you enable, but it's not just the physical lock. You have to do this and you have to do this. So
yes. Yeah, we have two digital locks on top of just the physical lock.
okay.
And exactly like you're saying, by the way, not everybody is like me and you that we're like need the most amount of security. Like there's other people who like if my grandmother doesn't live, she's not alive anymore, but for her, she doesn't need those extra layers of digital, right?
Yeah.
So these can all be turned on and off based on how much authentication
Okay.
uh, you want to have for yourself.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. So no backdoors. Um, the users own the footage. No one else can access it. And then even if like the FBI came to you and said, "Hey, we need the footage from this safe," you don't even have the ability to do that.
Yeah, so it's actually funny you're saying that. A couple of years ago, um, Liberty Safe. I'm going to say their name because it's super public, but
Hmm.
Liberty Safe had, I think it was in 2021. They had a situation where um, uh, the FBI went to them and said, "Hey, we need to gain access to this safe. We had a warrant to go into this guy's house, and we can't get into the safe. So we need you to give us, or we need the codes." And Liberty actually gave the FBI the codes to this guy's safe because like
Mm,
they keep these back doors. I mean, not back doors, but they keep like
backups.
the backup information. And that was like a huge, if you look in the safe world, that was a huge, huge, huge big
Betrayal of
no that they
trust.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't have that. We don't have access. And I don't want access. I don't want one of my employees having access. You know what I mean? Like I don't like inside jobs. I don't like inside anything. Like
Yeah.
that's it. It's yours and the clouds. Nobody can touch it. You know?
So it's just like any kind of old school safe would be, but a lot more exciting and has layers to it. And as
Exactly.
a security practitioner, all of us are like, good security is built in layers. It's not just one thing or another. It's one thing and another and another. And the more of those you have, the more difficult it is. And so, I mean, I'm looking forward to coming down to Miami at some point or checking out the product and seeing how I can utilize it too. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of cool things coming. And I know you've got other products coming out too, other than the standard safe as well.
Yeah, we want to be known for the best safe, the best safe, the most secure. Like we want to be known for that,
Hmm.
like, and over time we're going to develop other products in the security field until eventually we're bought out because that's what we want, right? Everybody wants eventually to get an exit. But we want to be known for that.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I like it.
yeah,
Um, so kind of taking a step back from the product perspective too, thinking about one of the things that you had said when we had our initial discussion. But you said everyone starts out at 100 out of 100 when it comes to trust. And I know this is a little bit of shift in the conversation, but it's been like ruminating in the back of my head, so I gotta get it out there. And that their actions like move that number up or down. So how does that work for you personally? And like what kind of things help you decide in a very literal sense, like how someone's score may drop?
again, so to go a little more into it, uh, everybody, there's two types of people who trust, right? There's people who trust indefinitely and like open arms, I trust
Hmm.
you. And there's people who have been burnt and I'm guessing it's from a young childhood thing that you
Yeah.
have defense mechanisms that say we cannot trust anyone,
Yeah. It's
because
given or
X,
it's
Y, Z.
earned.
So give it exactly. Thank you. That was much easier saying it than I said it.
Well, I think I've done this a few times, so I've got
So
some
so
lines for
yeah.
it now.
But yeah, so I'm somebody who you don't need to earn trust with.
Hmm.
You come in and I it's an internal system that I score everybody from 100 to 0.
Yeah.
And the reason I said 100 to 0 and not 0 to 100 is because everybody starts at 100.
Hmm.
And if you do bad things, your score goes down, right? And it's not just necessarily bad thing, it's just how much you can be trusted, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what relationships are built on, is trust,
Yeah.
right? um it's not like if you're lending somebody, I spoke earlier about the currency of money and trust, but if you're lending somebody money, it's still a trust that you're doing.
Yeah.
And um, for me, it's not just financial, but it's also like, hey, uh, if I'm going to take an extreme, but like if I killed somebody and asked you to help me move the body, right? Like, like, can
Sounds
I
like a
trust
very
you?
Miami thing.
Yeah, very Miami thing. So we leave them with the crocodiles and now, but yeah, so how much could you be trusted, right? And depending on like how you live your life and how often you talk to that person, and like I think people may not realize this, but we're always putting these little tests on people to see how they do.
Mm,
And excuse me, but like, right, it's certain things you may say or do, or like maybe you even trust also doesn't only go to that, it's how reliable somebody is,
yeah.
right? That's also part of trust. Like if you say, hey, I'm doing this podcast right now with, you know, I want you to watch it. If if nobody's if nobody decides to watch this podcast, like why not? Like,
Yeah.
do they not value like watch 10 minutes of it?
Yeah.
Tell me like, hey, I saw some time of it. Like, and so it doesn't always trust doesn't always have to be um like can they do this for me? But it's also like how reliable are they as a friend? And I think the more reliable somebody is, the higher value they have in my system and for everybody's system. But like for me, like I was saying before, I start at 100, and like you do something wrong, you're going down.
Yeah.
If for one of my biggest things are, can I trust you to keep a secret? Which
Hmm.
is funny because the secret is also like a safe, the safe in keeping whatever's in there secret. But that's one of my biggest ones. Like I test a lot of people all the time. Like I'll maybe make up something and spread it to one friend to see if that helps somebody else. You know, if
Yeah.
it gets back to me or if somebody else knows about that. Um, Especially if you say like, don't tell anybody,
Hmm.
right? But for me, that's the
We've all been
biggest.
hit with that before, where
Yeah,
it's like you've got like a work situation going on, and you're like, oh man, Jimmy did this shit, and like it really just messed things up for me. But like, I don't want Jimmy to know that I'm talking about this to you. I just need someone to talk to.
yeah,
And then 2 days later, Jimmy's like, what is this here? And you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, man. Yeah. So you're definitely someone that trusts by default, but like, you're
But
not.
by the way, I just want to say I probably get burned more than the average person
That's
because
the
of it,
risk. Yeah, that's the risk that
right?
comes along with it, and I'm the opposite, like, I don't trust anybody by default. When I intro myself to people, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Matt Yarger, I've got trust issues." And so, like, I'm gonna be very cautious at first, but once you earn my trust, making that score go down is very difficult. Like, I'll give you a lot of leeway just because I've seen, like, that consistency with you over a certain amount of time, or I've interacted with you enough, or, like, you've put your time into something that I care about even when I didn't ask you to do that.
Right.
So, like, hey, you got a buddy and you're like, "Oh, yeah, I was on this podcast," and they listen, they give you feedback. You might not have asked them to listen to it, but they like, "I'm interested. I care about you, Oscar, and I wanna know, like, what's going on in your life, and, like, what are you talking about that I can maybe contribute to or help with?"
You know what's funny? It's actually I I um I watched the movie. I watched Lincoln Lawyer last week.
Yeah.
The new season, right? It's about.
Okay.
I'm not gonna ruin it for anyone, but there is there's a con man in one of the episodes, right? But it's funny because like to be a con man, you have to have somebody's trust and then
Mhm.
right? And like they say like in one of the episodes, I think that like the ultimate con is if you build more and more and more and more and more trust until the trust is so large that like you would even lend $200,000 to like this person that you trust because like
Mm.
you lent him 10K and he paid you back 10K the next day. You
Yeah.
know, you did this and then like where you build up so much trust, which is kind of scary a little because like we're talking about like how trust brings up like this number, but at the same time there are people who could also ruin the trust, even if they're at the highest
Oh,
levels of
yeah.
trust.
Yeah, but it takes something pretty major to change that score.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of fast forward this clock 5 or 10 years. If you've done this right, and like you've built the safe space to what you want to do, and like the goals you're wanting to accomplish, and people really understand what you're trying to build, what do you hope they say about you and your choices?
Yeah, great question. So for me personally, I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of factories. For me, we spoke a lot about trust this episode, obviously, but um, one of the biggest things for in the beginning of the show was we spoke about when you're younger, that is your currency, right?
Yeah.
So um, I've worked for people who are dishonest. I've worked with factories that are dishonest. But I'll tell you this, I have every single person that I've ever worked with has always said good things about me.
That's good.
Um, Even the guy I was telling you, the guy who screwed me, right?
Yeah.
He, not the one when I was young, but the one from like 10 years ago,
Mm.
who still owed me like he owed me a lot, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Um, so right, he owed me, let's say, a couple $100,000 total, but like he, even to today, I I spoke to a cousin of mine who bumped into him 2 months ago, and she told me he's like he loves you. He said you're really awesome, and you were the best employee. and he trusted you the most, and like he really thought you were so great, and he said he had the nicest things to say about you. And it's funny because I don't like to shit on people,
Yeah.
so very, very few people know the story about him. My family didn't know the story about him,
Yeah.
you know? But I told him, I'm like, it's funny because he actually owes me like this money. He screwed me, but it's funny he's saying that. So, what I'd like,
It's a
for me,
paradox.
yeah, it's a paradox. But for me, if you, I, I I'm a guy who has created products for the last 15 years, and my product always had to be good quality product. I never
Hmm.
wanted to put my name on something that was shit because I don't want to be known for that, right? It goes back all to the same thing. But um, I want people to know me as somebody who built a great safe, built a great product, who like said like, this guy, um, he he sells a great product for a great value, and you know, like he can be trusted. That's I
Yeah.
guess what I'm trying to get at. He can be trusted. And if I started another company in 10 years selling cups and said these are the best cups in the world without even putting um, any like proof of it, I want people to trust. And because I'm saying that they're like, this guy makes great stuff and we love his stuff. I'm gonna
Yeah.
get this, And I know if the cup breaks, if I
You
reach out
want
to
your
his
word to
customer
mean
service,
something.
come again?
You want your word to mean something. Like you want
Yes.
to be able to go out there and say, this thing's awesome, and people just know because of who you are and what you stand for that they can trust that it's probably fucking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And that they're getting good value out of it because I'm very value driven, right?
Yeah.
Like I like to buy things I'll get good value out of. So yeah, I want people to know that. And on top of it, I guess there's one more thing I wanted to say was we have we have over 40 features in the sales. Um, and when I say 40 features, they're like there are features that no other safe has,
Hmm.
right? So it's like really, really differentiating ourselves. But specifically, a lot of these features that we have were actually suggested by customers.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, like the screensaver one. We had a customer who said it would be cool if you could do like a screensaver and we could put a picture of whatever we wanted there. He didn't say that, but that was like later. But first he said it would be cool if you could do a radio on the screen. So that was that guy. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a great idea. So we actually have a lot of features that we have because of our customers. We listen to our customers. And
Hmm.
and that's one of the things I want to be known for also.
Yeah.
Not just like he didn't just try to make money and make a good product. Like I I want
I
a
mean, I think
community
that's
built from
yeah,
this,
I think that's really what makes a great company great too, is it's not just like, hey, you've got a great product, it's strong, blah, blah, blah. It does what it's supposed to do. But you look at the reviews and everyone's like, no, this is like, I submitted a request for this. 2 months later, I had an update and I got to do this thing. And so like, it's not just like you're building the company, you're Steve Jobs, you tell people what they need. Like
Yeah.
you listen and say, what's the other bell and whistle that would really set this apart for you and make it something that you value beyond what's just inside of it.
Yeah, and the same goes for like we have on our website we have a contact form, and I always say if I say to the team, if anything comes directed to me that's not spam that I should be reading, forward it to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't give my email out to people, but it's almost the same. You know what I mean? Like it's so yeah, I want to hear from people if they want to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always ask a recurring question to close this out, but I feel like you already hit the point of it.
Go
Um,
ahead.
so I mean, my closeout question is always this, and I'm not going to take ownership of it because I heard it from another podcast. But I really do think there's a significant difference between being well known and being known well.
Yeah.
So to close this out beyond what you've already shared, what do you want anyone who may listen to this to know about you so they go forward feeling like they know you well? because that does translate. It translates to your products and your professional aptitude and the opportunities that are presented to you. So
Yeah, I would probably say this, it's funny because like, okay, right now I'm just a regular person, but if I one day became a billionaire,
mhm.
like I I would still want people to have the same image of me.
Yeah,
I would want people to know like I'm a loyal guy. I'm an entrepreneur who's willing to risk everything of his to create something for other people to make it either more secure or better place. I, I'm willing to give everything of my own to build something for other people,
mhm.
and it's funny because one of uh, my dream is later in life to make enough money that like I could use my time to help other people.
Yeah,
And and, and that is something that like I'm thriving for. My dream is really to have like $100 million in the bank and taking a couple hours a week and meeting with entrepreneurs and telling them, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm going to invest money in your company because I believe in you. I believe in this. Um, I mean, right now I do that on like a low level,
yeah,
like I'm not putting money into people, but I do. I invest a lot of time into new founders, people who have new ideas. And I want to be known for like that guy who gives back,
yeah,
you know, that's what I want to be known for. I don't want to be known as like when you think of like Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or like a lot of these people, and I know I'm taking extreme cases, but you know, people don't really have the best things to say about those guys.
yeah.
I would never want somebody to say that about me.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, I've talked to you about this before, but like that's why you're building the thing you're building too.
yeah,
You're not just building another widget to get out there. You're building something that you believe in and that you think is going to create some degree of like change in the world and help people on a personal level. Um and so I think we got that point across, and obviously your word is very important to you. So if anybody wants to ever provide Oscar with some feedback, go on the website and find that email and send them a request. But to close out, I mean, Oscar, it's been great getting to know you. The serendipity of it is really just really funny to me, knowing that like I'm close friends with one of your family members, and we've actually met in person before.
no way.
Yeah, we met in New York one time at a friend of theirs' birthday party, and it just I remember thinking back like, "Oh yeah, that guy, I had a great time with him," but it was like just for the dinner, and then we never saw each other again. And then you reach back out like this, and here we are. So I appreciate you reaching out and
Thank,
reconnecting. I appreciate
thank you,
you taking the
thank you,
time and telling us your story.
thank.
And if you got anything for anyone to share or like to reach out to you other than your forum, just let people know how to keep track of what you're doing, man.
Yeah, yeah. Just go to the website www.thespacesafe.com, and yeah, everything's there. If you need to reach out to me, if you have questions, um, but yeah, and yeah. By the way, it was a fun time. I think I know which one you're talking about. The birthday was it downtown New York?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was.
Downtown New York. Yeah.
I'll
So
I'll send you the
it's
picture
funny.
after this too.
Okay, cool. It's funny. I believe in God. I believe in the universe. I believe that like things have a way of coming around, and
Mhm.
you know, I do believe in karma. Uh, but yeah, it's funny. I guess hours came around.
Absolutely. Well, Oscar, thanks again for your time. Can't wait to talk next time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, so you don't miss what's coming next. If trust is at the heart of your work, whether in sustainability, business, governance, or personal leadership, I'd love to hear your story. Reach out, share your thoughts, or tag someone who should join the conversation on our socials. Let's shape the future of trust together. Until next time, thanks for listening.